Welcome, friends and foes, survivors and killers. Let's sit around the campfire together and talk about Dead by Daylight. Specifically, about something that's been playing on my mind lately, especially with the release of the Binding of Kin chapter being underwhelming for many people. Today we'll be talking about why lore in games, and particularly Dead by Daylight, matters. But before we do, I'm going to need to set the scene a bit to discuss the circumstances in which this video was born. Since the release of the twins, on the 1st of December 2020, it would be an understatement to say that they and the chapter they came with were not well received. Even once the infamously huge list of bugs was sorted through and fixed, they still have a reputation of being miserable to play with nothing interesting about them. They've been accused of being good for nothing except face camping and turbo slugging, and they're widely considered a badly designed killer, a failure in the eyes of much of the player base. Now, I don't think that's entirely fair. While some of the issues people have with the twins are actually very reasonable, I believe a lot of the grievances that people hold on to about them come from the patch they were actually released on, being hashed together and full of bugs, rather than the killers themselves. There's a lot of residual antipathy left over from the disaster that was that patch that has been directed towards the twins, without many people really giving them a fair shake. Regardless of why people dislike the twins, the fact remains that they were not exactly welcomed with open arms, and that has caused a lot of disillusionment among enfranchised Dead by Daylight players. The renowned streamer, Metal of Man luminary, and alleged cat enthusiast Scott Jund put it best in his video: why does Dead by Daylight somehow work?
If you don't like the new content, like I didn't like the twins, this happened before too with Legion and stuff like that. I also started playing less that series of 3 months because to me it's basically like there's no new content for 3 months. So it's been 6 months of just nothing. And
I never thought of it that way before. I honestly felt the opposite. That we've been spoiled for content. I haven't been able to fully keep up. Aside from actually playing the twins and trying out Elodie's perks, we've had map updates to Autohaven and Ormond. We've had the stories of Elodie and the twins, plus a whole tome full of stories of varying quality to enjoy. But I gather that a full-time player of the game who plays at the highest level and doesn't care about the lore, yeah, I'm beginning to understand it now. This brings me to my first point. Lore is important, because it's a new axis on which the game can be enjoyed. When it comes to enjoying a multiplayer game, there are usually two schools of thought. I like this game because it is fun, and I like this game because it is balanced. A game can be fun without necessarily being well balanced like Overwatch or League of Legends, or it can be well balanced without being fun, like, I don't know, backgammon or electoral politics. I am an advocate of a third option. You can just like a game because the story is really good. Think of it like watching a movie. You can see a film with shoddy editing, poor performances, and unconvincing special effects, but you can still value it for telling a good story that's written well. And that's particularly important for a multiplayer game marketed as a service, because unlike balanced states or even the fun factor of the game, the lore, the story, the characters, and the aesthetics will last forever. Nobody's going to look back on their memories of Dead by Daylight 10 years from now and say, "Gosh, I remember way back then when Pop Goes the Weasel lasted for 60 seconds rather than 45. Those were the days." The fun of the game might last longer in your memory, sure, but if the enjoyment factor drops with the consecutive updates, it will leave people with a sour taste in their mouths. They'll leave the game with the lasting memory of it being a miserable experience they'd rather live without. So fun, much like balance, is time-sensitive and vulnerable to degradation. The characters and the aesthetics of the game stay with you and don't degrade from update to update, from year to year. You can't tell me that the first time you saw the Doctor's twisted face, the first time you heard the Oni's roar, the first time you spotted Michael Myers stalking you silently, just in the corner of your eye, that those images didn't stay with you long after you turned off the PC or put the controller away. Yes, they lose their impact over time, but that's not because you forget about them. It's because you remember them, to the point that they lose their novelty. but that doesn't invalidate the striking initial impression that these design choices have. And these design choices are indelibly tied to the lore. Why does the Oni roar like that? Because he's a demonic force of anger. Why does the Doctor look like that? Because he was tortured by the entity to ensure his cooperation. Even if these designs change down the line, you will still remember what they are when you first experience them. Whether you're new to the game or a 4,000-hour veteran, these images, these ideas will be imprinted on your brain, and they won't get patched out or bug fixed away. Which brings me to my next point. Accessibility. Dead by Daylight has a difficult relationship with accessibility options. On one hand, the clear and distinct visual and sound cues mean that even people with vision or hearing difficulties can play and enjoy the game to some degree. But on the other, options like colorblind mode and FOV sliders to avoid motion sickness still don't exist, limiting the access some people might have to the full experience of playing the game. A little side note on that one. If I was annoyed by 4.5 years of players pestering me to put a colorblind mode into my game, I would simply stop them pestering me by adding it into the game. Just might be something worth considering. Fortunately, that's not a limitation that extends to the story. Colorblind people, people with motion sickness, people with dexterity or hearing issues can all sink their teeth into Dead by Daylight's rich story content. Even if you're blind or illiterate, Behaviour has recorded the observer reading every passage in every story in every archive tome for you to listen to. This extends to the game experience too. A totally new player has just as much access to Dead by Daylight story content as a veteran who's been playing since the game came out. There is no manual component, no skill requirement, no prohibitive hardware or software specifications needed to enjoy reading a story or listening to an audio log. Anyone can do it. You could have never even downloaded the game and still be just as invested in the story as someone who plays it for a living. Just like the opinion of someone who's seen a movie for the first time is as valid as someone who's watched it 100 times. This brings me to the third idea I'd like to discuss here. The concept of treating a video game like a piece of artistic expression, and how the Dead by Daylight community has a love-hate relationship with that concept. It's no secret that Dead by Daylight is not a well-balanced game for the tournament scene. I'm not skilled enough to be on the level of a tournament player, so I can't authoritatively state that myself, but I have it on good authority that the tournament DBD scene only works in spite of the game's mechanisms, not because of them.
There's barely a tournament scene for this game because it's a joke. No offense if you're into tournaments. It's just, I don't think that the tournament organizers are a joke or anything like that. I just think there's too many variables and bugs and things like that to make it an actual serious competitive game like that.
You'd think then, with no tournament scene to speak of and a rank system that we all know is totally meaningless, Dead by Daylight would be treated like a casual game by its player base. There's no reward for sweating your balls off, so why would you do it?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Well, there's the age-old question, and the answer is very simple. Because that's how you beat the other guy when they're sweating their balls off. There's a curious obsession this community has with being as effective as possible. And it's reflected in the landscape of Dead by Daylight's premier content creators. It's all guide to mastering this, or how to loop that. And it's not intended to be a criticism or a dig of that kind of content. Far from it, I have enormous respect for many of this game's biggest educational creators, precisely because they have the knowledge on how to play the game effectively, like no one else can, and the charisma and patience to share that knowledge with everybody else. It's just something I've observed, that with how much focus there is placed on upping your game, and performing to the best of your ability, you'd think this game was some sort of esport, with big glossy tournaments, and a pro circuit people were clamouring for, but there isn't even a real rank ladder. Treating the game as an artistic expression more than a competitive experience is both a natural extension of Dead by Daylight's inherently casual nature, and something utterly alien to a lot of people. I've spoken to players with thousands of hours in this game who know nothing about the lore because they'd never considered the game outside of the game as anything other than window dressing. If that's how you want to consume Dead by Daylight, I'm not going to sit here and demand you read X, Y, and Z, but what I always feel compelled to say is, you're missing out on some genuinely powerful stories. The world of Dead by Daylight is rich with detail, character, and its own unique flair, enriched even further by the licensed properties it has taken into its canon. There are 24 survivors and 22 killers in this game, and each and every one of them has something to offer from a storytelling and character perspective. Yes, Lisa, even you. And it's only going to grow over time. These rich stories are only ever going to get richer. The world of Dead by Daylight only gets bigger with every new revelation, every new character, and as I said before, these stories are never going to go away. They will always remain relevant, there will always be value to them. Long after metagames shift and perks and maps and powers change 10 times over, these stories will persist in the hearts and minds of their readers. You want proof of that? Look at my videos and my comment sections. I get so many comments and so many requests for old topics to cover, and I've got a serious backlog, a really huge backlog, that I think in the Dead by Daylight YouTube sphere is quite unique. You don't get people in Scott's comments or Otzdava's stream asking them to talk about what meta perks used to be around, because that's old content. The information is long past its sell-by date, but one of my favourite and most popular videos covers a killer released 2 years ago. A video about my favourite killer that I poured my heart and soul into. The Plague is, by all accounts, quite an unpopular killer in gameplay metrics, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters is her story, and that transcends time. My comments tell the same story. A ravenous demand for what is fundamentally old content, dusted off and re-examined in a new light, because these stories and these characters stick with people years after they come out. By the way, I have a 4-year backlog of lore to get through. So if you have a specific character you want me to look at, don't worry, I am getting around to it. It just might take a while. Benedict Baker hasn't been mentioned in the lore since September 2018, and I am still asked what he's doing now. To make a video examining his notes and guessing what he might be up to. Imagine if I was talking about the meta from 2018. I'd be talking about insta-heals, landing great skill checks to beat Ruin, and demanding Freddy buffs for God's sakes. People would think I was mad. I hope I don't sound like some pretentious snob when I say that I hope my videos will be timeless to some degree. I like to think people could come back to my Silent Hill video or my Plague video in 10, 20, 30 years' time, when Dead by Daylight isn't even played anymore, look through the stories and worlds I talk about, and fall in love with them all over again, just like I did. Maybe one day that person might even be me. Maybe I'll dust off my old videos when I'm old and grey. And this game, and the community that loved it, is dead and gone, and miss it for what it used to be. This is why I want Dead by Daylight story to be the best it can be, and why I want to see people appreciating it more, because a story is a testament to days gone by, a love letter, or a comic anecdote, or a cautionary tale. It's the skeleton on which this game is built, and just like a skeleton, it will be the last thing left when everything else is gone. A beautiful and macabre memorial to days and weeks and years spent in the fog, and to all the people who shared it with me. That is why the lore of this game matters, and I'll be doing my best in the videos to come to do it justice. I hope you come with me when I do. Alright, first of all I'd like to say thanks to Bengineering and Scott Jund for letting me drain from your experiences and content like a shitty YouTube vampire. And I'd also like to thank everyone watching this right now. The channel's growth has been, for want of a better word, completely off the chain. On the 29th of December I celebrated hitting 1,000 subscribers, and today I'm hitting 3,000. That's frankly astounding. I'm completely floored by how well this is going, so thank you everyone who's helping this channel get its feet off the ground. If you haven't subscribed, then please do. Check the links in the description to see the Discord server that I've launched. It's very active, got some great people on it, and we've got some excellent little community going on, so please do join in. This lovely music you're hearing, for example, has been made by Idiotic Sugar on the Discord. They're extremely talented, and I can't thank them enough for making it. I stream on Twitch as well every Wednesday night at 7:30 GMT at twitch.tv/pixelbush entertainment, so take a look at that if you're interested, and my Twitter is down there as well. Really, that's it. I once again, I can't thank you enough for everything that's happening right now. It really is a dream come true for me, so see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now. Oh, and if anyone from Behaviour is watching this, implement colorblind mode in your game. Thank you.